recently I went ahead and reviewed some financial stuff for new students, especially new students who are first generation, or maybe they were fresh out of high school, new students who were new to budgeting period and finances period, and even students who are like on financial aid. And when I went to review the information, it's information that basically is being handed to them by the education systems of the state. And the state itself is trying to toss them this information to help them out. And when I was reviewing it, I was shocked, genuinely shocked, because it's either just outright wrong or outdated, almost all of it. Almost none of the information is actually something I would personally teach some young high schooler first starting out in life, or a first generation student, or any of the things on the list, let alone encourage someone else to teach them. Man, it was just hard to read this stuff and realize how many thousands of kids, possibly even hundreds of thousands or millions of kids, are being shoved this information when they're first starting out in life, or they're first going to college, or trying to get into school. It was really difficult for me because it's meant to be well-intentioned. And the very people who are supposed to be inspiring these kids are telling them really not great things. I'm gonna just go ahead and bring some of them up and what you should do instead. Because if you are starting from scratch with finances, or maybe you're just starting over with finances, there's bad advice, and then there's the actual good advice to counter it. Number one, track your spending every single day. Track every single penny. Keep every receipt. Hoard all of the information every single day. It's literally teaching you to be anxious, to be scared of money, to be worried about money, to always be stressed about money, which none of that is good. So instead, recognize that banks have automation. And when you purchase with a debit card, you purchase with a credit card, you purchase from the bank system, you're going to have a record of it from the bank. You can use an app, you can use the website, and you can even just go into the bank and check once a month and have them send you something in the mail. Like, there are ways to get your statements, and you can track your spending without having to freak out about it every single day, save every single receipt, and be in a panic about money. Now, if you are self-employed, yeah, you got to hold on to some receipts so that you can use them on your tax return. But most students are probably not self-employed, and most students are also, if they are working, like working with a W-2, a employer instead of self-employment. So please take that advice and shove it in a corner somewhere. Because if you are every single day terrified about your spending and tracking every single dollar because you feel like if you're not anal about it, something could drastically go wrong, that's just fueling anxiety, and life has enough stuff going on in it. You don't need something worse. So, number one, bank automation is a good thing. There are people who say, write everything down. Have some sort of a written planner, or in your actual computer, you can have a spreadsheet. And while that can be definitely useful, it's not a requirement. There are, other spreadsheet programs besides Microsoft Excel, and you could even use QuickBooks or something if you want to, but you can just make Google Documents and it's free, or just let the bank automation do it for you. If you can have self-discipline and look at what you spent last month and say, here's the things that weren't necessary going into this month, that's fine. If you can keep a monthly date with yourself to check your budget, check your finances, your investing, whatever it is you have going on, that's fine. That's good enough. You don't need to harp on it constantly. You don't need to write stuff down every day or track it every day. or be like, oh my god, I found these pennies under my couch, gotta change my budget. It just breathe. Just breathe. Even when you're poor, money should not be that extremely anxious driving in your system. It just shouldn't be. The second thing that is really emphasized in this stuff is save. Be a saver. And I have spoken before about the moral implications of identifying yourself as a saver, but in reality, saving up money is not a philosophically sound way of choosing your ethics. So take it with a grain of salt. I 100% encourage you to save up for goals and dreams. Save up for an emergency fund and make sure that you have that set up. But once you have those things done, start investing. The younger you start investing, the better. And you can invest into your future quite cheaply. It doesn't cost money with almost all the investment sites anymore to actually open up an account. You don't even have to start with a brokerage account. If you're 18 and older, if you've ever worked a job, even if you're not 18, just start a Roth IRA. And if you have an employer who does 401ks and maybe even price matching with the 401ks, do it. The younger you are when you start investing, the less money you have to actually save up toward retirement in the long run. So just recognize that, yes, saving up is important, but the kind of goals you're saving up for when you're like a teenager and stuff, or in your early 20s, should be things like, hey, I'm saving up for my emergency fund, and then maybe a vacation, or maybe a computer, or something like that. Don't just save indefinitely. They never tell you, oh, here's the threshold, and now that you've reached this boundary line, you can start investing now. So I'm just gonna say it. Once you have your emergency fund and you've saved up enough for like a few $1,000s toward vacations and computers and school supplies and stuff, start investing. You don't actually need to save up for like a down payment on a house or something like that while you're in school. You're gonna be doing school, so you're not gonna really have time for house repairs and house maintenance and things like that anyway, for the most part. If you are lucky enough in your late teens, early 20s to be able to afford to buy a house, congratulations, but that is going to be a very small portion of the American population. A really frustrating thing for me is how these advices speak about budgets. First of all, they said everything in your budget is a want or a need, and you need to decide what you actually need and not buy anything that's a want. That's horrible advice. Terrible advice. In reality, we're all human, and saying, oh, I'll only get what I need means that you have to be at your best 100% of the time. That's not realistic. Humans, they need sometimes to want. So accept that that's true, accept that's going to happen, and think about when you're at your worst. Set aside enough in your budget that you can get what you want to comfort yourself when you're at your worst. Because in reality, we all need comfort. Sometimes life gets really hard and I get a thing of Oreos. And I mean, that's a nice cheap thing to get. It doesn't have to be expensive, the things that help comfort you. But in reality, we're not perfect. We're human. Budgeting, they're like, oh, 50% of your budget goes toward your necessities like your rent, your utilities, your food budget, and so on and so forth. And then the other 40%, you put 10% into investing, 10% into saving, 10% into paying off debt, and 10% into splurge money, into whatever you want to do with it money. I do not like that budgeting way at all. If you can, you do want your necessities to be 50% or less of your budget. But 10% into your investments is too low. To me, it needs to be 20 or 30% or higher. 10% into saving up for your goals and your dreams is too low. And if you have debt, you need to be putting as much to get rid of the debt as you can as soon as possible, unless you specifically are using that debt to build credit, or it is for instance, a house. Debt doesn't actually help you long term unless you literally just don't have credit. Which brings me to another thing that they say that is just not the greatest advice. They're like, the first thing you need to do is go to a bank, get a credit card, and then put it in a drawer somewhere and never use it. That's absolutely wrong advice. If you can, if your parents or your maybe significant other or maybe an aunt or an uncle can put you as an authorized user on their credit card and not have you buy anything with the credit card, but after about 6 months or so, you will start to be basically brought into having their credit score. You'll be associated with their credit. So if they have anything over, I would say even 720, you know what, even 700. If they have 700 or higher credit score, become an authorized user, because you're going to build credit way faster and you don't have to deal with having to manage the credit card yourself. Secondly, if you don't have that option, I did not have that option when I was first getting my first credit card. So I had to get a secured card, and secured cards suck because the limit is super small. You have to put a deposit down on what the amount is, and in the end, when they give you that deposit back, you lose part of the money, they keep part of it. It's basically just you giving yourself temporary loans every time you use the credit card and paying yourself back, and then the bank keeps part of that at the end for allowing you the opportunity to do that to yourself. It sucks, but it's necessary. Some people, a student card can work out, but a student card usually also has some sort of age limit. It's usually like 24. So if you are a student who's maybe first gen, but you didn't get to go to college until you were past 25, you might not have as many options for a student card. Student cards also can have interest rates and stuff that you want to look into. I mean, look into an interest rate and all that kind of stuff when you get a credit card, period. But starting out with a credit card, the best option is not walk into a bank and get a card. Secondly, when you first get a card, there's usually a welcome bonus for spending a certain amount within the first 2 months or so. Get the card when you need to buy something anyway. You need to get something for school, you are going to get a computer because you're starting school. Okay, get the card, put the computer on the card, pay for the computer by paying off your credit card. Don't buy something that you don't already have the money to get, but you might as well get handed the welcome bonus for buying something you were going to get anyway. Say you get some tuition back. You had financial aid, you got a scholarship, whatever it is, and they give you some of the money as a refund because they didn't need all of it for your tuition. Instead of just go blowing that money, get it on your credit card, whatever you're gonna buy, and then use that money to pay off the credit card. You establish a purchase. Now, I will say there is a caveat to this advice. It is important to utilize only 30% at the max of what your credit card has for its credit limit, because that is a loan coming from the bank temporarily, little baby loans that you can access and then pay off quickly. They're just quick little fast loans. That's all credit cards really are. If you are using almost all of that, then they're gonna be like, this person's really desperate for money. We don't trust that. It's really important to stay under 30% utilization of your credit card. Your first credit card might not have a high enough limit for you to put a computer on and stay under that 30%. That can happen. So get a book or get a book bag or something. The other thing is to put it in a drawer and never use it doesn't build your credit. It doesn't actually help you. So what I suggest is pick one really small bill that you can put on autopay, and it doesn't go over that 30% of your credit limit, and call it good. Set it to autopay with your credit card, and then set, before the end of your billing cycle, your credit card to autopay from your bank account that bill. You are not having to pay a ton of attention, and your credit is building. It could be, oh, you have a little phone bill, or maybe you're still on your parents' phone bill because you're a student. Well, maybe once a month you have a cost for a subscription thing that you have. Put it on the credit card, and then have your bank account auto pay the credit card before the end of the credit cycle for the card. And your bill cycle is different. Some people it's the end of the month, sometimes it's not. So make sure and check when the end of your bill cycle for the credit card is. But yeah, like, if you don't have any recurring bills really because you're a student and your parents are actually, you know, capable of affording to help you with stuff, or maybe you got a full ride scholarship or something, pick something really small. A snack that you get every month, a ice cream. You pick a day, having a date with yourself, and you're going to go out for ice cream. Put it on the credit card. 2 days later, pay the credit card off. Pick some really small thing. You love a particular kind of candy bar, and, you know, twice a month, you go buy yourself that candy bar because you're happy with your grades. It's your reward. It's your motivation to write this freaking essay. Cool. Put it on the credit card. 2 days later, go pay the credit card off. Some tiny, small, little monetary amount once a month. Ta-da, you're done. When I watched the information given to the college kids, something that really, really bothered me when I was reviewing it was that they said if you are shopping and if you're spending with that credit card, you need to go get help. You need to go to therapy. They were acting like the person is automatically a hoarder or like gonna go down the deep end into debt simply because they purchased something in a month. And that's not realistic. That's just fueling anxiety, once again, which is not how your relationship with money is supposed to be. So please, please know that if you purchase something and you do it within a very self-disciplined way, it's totally fine. You don't need to get help. Using a credit card to buy something small so that you can build up your credit is fine as long as you already have the money to pay off whatever you spent. And you do before the end of the bill cycle. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to get help. You don't need to be anxious. You don't need to be ashamed of yourself or think that you have some sort of debt spiral that's on the verge of happening if you don't stop. Like, that whole concept is just very not accurate. As long as you understand that when you use that credit card, you're just taking out a little baby loan and that you need to pay the loan back before the end of the bill cycle, it helps so much. There's nothing wrong with purchasing if you have the ability to do so. If you have enough money to spend to buy that $5 worth of Oreos, it's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. Except maybe you don't need that much sugar, but I mean, don't eat the Oreos all at once. But I mean, financially, that's okay. As you have the $5 to spare yourself the $5. The last thing they finished off with was, if you have any kind of questions about finances, just Google it. Just look up something on some website. And let me be clear, there are some websites that are better than other ones, and they did not differentiate that at all. They also did not mention investing, period. So I am going to say again, the younger you are when you start investing, the better. Seriously. Go to Fidelity, go to M1 Finance, go to Charles Schwab, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter that much which one you pick, as long as it is an insured and reputable brokerage company. Whatever. Start a money market account if you don't want to start a Roth IRA. Whatever it is. But You can start by investing even $10. You don't have to invest a ton of money. And quite frankly, look up promotions first. There are promotions. There are promotions when you invest into a money market account or Roth IRA or whatever. With these websites, they'll give you money back or even give you stocks. So check for promotions before you open the account and then just start it. And then you might not be able to put anything else in there the entire rest of the year because you're a broke student. That is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it'll be sitting there accumulating a little teeny tiny bit of interest as long as you set it to reinvest back into itself while you're in school. And when you get out of school, you'll have a tiny bit of money in a retirement account already. If you can afford to put a little bit in each month, do it. Maybe you can retire early someday. But don't just go to any random website. There are better ones than other ones. I would say if you really want to go to some websites, I'm not sponsored by any of these, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm just saying from experience. You can go to Google Finance, you can go to Investopedia, NerdWallet, especially if you're looking into credit cards. NerdWallet is actually pretty decent for that. There's Credit Karma, there's smartasset.com. You can get something out of good websites. But please don't go to the Reddit threads for finance bros where they're putting in calls and puts all day and talking about futures and get caught up in the gambling. Please don't go to any old website and trust them. Please don't just trust any website. I want to say something that they did not say when they were talking to all these college kids in all of these little teaching videos that they make for them about finances. That finances are supposed to be your ally. Finances are something you use to help you get to your goals. So when you make your budget around your goals and not just around your spending. Have balance. And don't think that you are deficient or that you are a terrible person if you get confused about something, or if you get in a really hard situation in life and you end up in some debt. It's not that something's wrong with you, it's that something's wrong with the system. And we all have to live in the system, we have to deal with the system, but it doesn't mean that you, the person, are somehow bad. So please don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid to exist. And make sure that some portion of your budget, even if it's tiny, is going toward investing in yourself.